You've probably noticed this strange pattern in your life. You leave a toxic relationship, promising yourself never again, and yet the next person you fall for carries the same red flags. You quit a draining job, full of hope for a fresh start, only to discover the new office feels just as suffocating. Or maybe you move to a new city, thinking this time things will be different, but somehow, the same old struggles find you again. It's almost as if reality is copying and pasting itself, replaying the same script with different actors and different backdrops. And you can't help but wonder, why does this keep happening? Why does life feel like a loop that you never signed up for? Most people blame bad luck. Some say it's fate, others shrug and say, that's just life. But deep down, doesn't that explanation feel too shallow? Doesn't it feel like there's something else, something hidden, guiding these repetitions? What if the loop isn't random at all? What if it's not the universe punishing you, but rather echoing you? Think about it. Every single day, you wake up carrying not just your memories, but your emotions, your fears, your subconscious expectations. You walk into new experiences already tuned to a familiar state. It's like you're broadcasting a silent signal into the world, one you don't even realize you're sending. And reality, in response, mirrors it back to you. This is where the concept of quantum frequency begins to matter. Just like a radio can only play the station it's tuned into, your life can only play the reality that matches the frequency you are unconsciously set to. And if that frequency hasn't changed, no matter how many times you switch jobs, partners, or cities, the song that plays will sound eerily familiar. But here's the unsettling question. If your frequency is invisible, if it's beyond conscious control, are you doomed to keep repeating the same story forever? Or could there be a way to shift it? Could it be possible that what you think of as reality isn't fixed at all, but collapses around the signal you're sending out every moment of every day? And if that's true, then the real mystery is not why life keeps repeating, but how you might finally change the channel. So let's peel back this mystery a little deeper. Why do these loops keep happening? Even when you swear you've learned your lesson, even when you've promised yourself never again. Psychology has been asking this question for more than a century. Freud once said that human beings are compelled to repeat. He believed that the unconscious doesn't simply record our past, it reenacts it over and over, like a script we can't stop performing. That's why you can leave a bad relationship, but still find yourself drawn to someone who carries the same traits. The unconscious is playing out a pattern, hoping to resolve it this time, yet instead dragging you back into the same pain. Carl Jung went further. He called it the shadow, the hidden parts of ourselves we refuse to face. The shadow doesn't disappear just because we ignore it. Instead, it shows up outside of us, mirrored in the people we meet and the challenges we face. That's why the boss who humiliates you feels strangely familiar, almost like an echo of an old wound. That's why the lover who abandons you awakens the same ache you thought you buried years ago. It isn't random. It's your shadow, reflected back through the world around you. And modern psychology, like cognitive behavioral therapy, gives us a similar picture. It shows how thoughts, emotions, and behaviors form loops. A thought sparks a feeling, the feeling drives an action, the action reinforces the original thought, and round it goes, until the loop becomes automatic. In other words, the story you tell yourself becomes the story your life keeps performing. But here's the thing. You don't need to look into academic theories to feel it. You can see it everywhere in modern American life. The young professional who quits one toxic job only to land in another corporate culture of burnout. The couple who fights about money, breaks up, and then finds themselves in the same argument with a different partner. The endless cycle of consumerism. Work harder, buy more, feel empty, repeat. It's not just a coincidence. It's a system of loops. Loops in the mind, loops in behavior, loops in emotion. And when enough of those loops overlap, they start to look like fate. But fate is a dangerous word, isn't it? It makes you believe you're powerless, that you're just a victim of some grand cosmic joke. And yet, if you listen closely, there's something else happening beneath the surface. Because every loop has a rhythm. Every rhythm has a frequency. And if your mind and emotions are repeating the same cycles, then maybe it isn't fate at all. Maybe it resonates. Maybe it's the signal you're unconsciously tuned to, vibrating through every decision, every attraction, every so-called accident. That's why even when you change the surface of your life, new job, new city, new partner, the core experience feels the same. You've changed the scenery, but you haven't changed the frequency. And this realization opens a haunting possibility. If your life keeps repeating not because of bad luck, but because of the invisible frequency you carry, then the real prison isn't the world outside you. The real prison is the signal inside you. So the question becomes unavoidable. If your unconscious patterns are shaping your reality, and if those patterns are powered by the frequency you emit, what would it take to finally break the loop? What if I told you that psychology only explains half the story? Yes, our unconscious mind creates loops. Yes, our shadow plays tricks on us. But beneath all of that lies something deeper, something more fundamental, something woven into the very fabric of reality itself. This is where we step into the world of quantum. Now don't worry, you don't need a physics degree to understand this. Because at its core, quantum isn't about equations on a chalkboard. It's about patterns of energy. It's about frequency. Think of it like this. The universe isn't made of static, solid stuff. At the most fundamental level, everything, your body, your thoughts, the chair you're sitting on, is vibration. Tiny quanta of energy, constantly moving, constantly oscillating. And just like a guitar string resonates with a particular note, your life resonates with the frequency you're unconsciously tuned to. This is what people mean when they talk about quantum frequency. It's not just a metaphor. It's the recognition that your inner state broadcasts outward, shaping what you experience. Every thought, every belief, every hidden expectation is like a tuning fork, humming at a specific pitch, and the external world responds, echoing back in resonance. Let's make it even simpler. Imagine you're holding a radio. You twist the dial to 98.7 FM, and instantly, that's the music you hear. But the funny thing is, the other stations are still out there. 99.1, 101.3, 105.5, they're all broadcasting at the same time. You just can't hear them because you're not tuned to them. Reality works in a similar way. You are the radio. Your consciousness is the dial. And the frequency you hold, through your emotions, beliefs, and focus, is what determines which station of reality you experience. If you stay tuned to the same frequency, the song of your life doesn't change. That's why you can switch partners, switch jobs, switch homes, and yet the melody feels the same. Here's where the observer effect comes into play. In quantum physics, when scientists observed particles, they noticed something strange. The particles behaved differently, simply because they were being observed. In other words, the act of observation itself influenced reality. Now think about what that means for you. Every day, you're observing reality through a specific lens. Maybe the lens of, I'm not enough, or people always leave, or work is always stressful. And by observing through that lens, you collapse reality into forms that prove you right. The same loop, over and over. It's like living inside a simulation. Imagine you're playing a video game, but your controller is broken. It only lets you choose the same path no matter how many times you restart the level. The graphics change a little, the characters look different, but the outcome is the same. That's what happens when your frequency is locked. You can change the surface, but the code stays the same. But here's the breakthrough. In quantum terms, the code isn't fixed. Reality isn't one single track. It's a field of infinite possibilities. Which version of reality you experience depends on what frequency you bring to it. You're not stuck with one song, one simulation, one loop. You're only stuck as long as you keep tuning into the same old signal. And this changes everything, because it means your suffering isn't meaningless. It's not punishment, it's information. Every repeated loop is like the universe handing you a mirror, saying, look, this is the frequency you're broadcasting. Do you want to keep playing this station, or do you want to change the channel? Pause for a moment and let that sink in. the job that feels the same, the partner who triggers the same wounds, the burnout that never goes away. None of it is random. All of it is resonance. But if resonance brought you here, resonance can also take you somewhere new. Imagine what happens when you shift the dial. Imagine tuning into a frequency where relationships feel nourishing, where work feels purposeful, where your daily life hums with a different rhythm. The possibilities already exist, just like the other radio stations exist even when you're not listening. They don't suddenly appear. They've been there all along, waiting for you to match their frequency. This is why the idea of quantum frequency isn't just abstract. It's practical. It gives you a framework to understand why your reality feels stuck, and a reason to believe that change is possible, not because someone promised you a miracle, but because physics itself says you are more than a victim. You are the dial. And if that's true, then the most important question you could ever ask yourself is not, why is life repeating? The real question is, what frequency am I tuned to right now, and how do I change it? Up until now, it may have felt like your life is being controlled by invisible forces, loops of psychology, hidden shadows, unseen frequencies. And in a way, that's true. But here's the twist. The very thing that feels like a prison is also the key to your freedom. You see, if your unconscious patterns, your beliefs, and your emotions are broadcasting a frequency, then that means you are not just the receiver of reality. You are the transmitter. You are the broadcast tower. Most people spend their whole lives believing they are victims of circumstance. I can't help it. That's just the way life is. But what if that belief itself is the very frequency holding them captive? What if the real problem isn't that reality is cruel, but that they've forgotten their own role in shaping it? This is where philosophy meets quantum. Jean-Paul Sartre, the French existentialist, once said, "Man is condemned to be free." At first, that sounds bleak. Condemned? Free. But what Sartre meant was this: freedom is unavoidable. You cannot escape responsibility for the reality you participate in. Even refusing to choose is still a choice, and that is the rebellion. To stop seeing yourself as a passive observer and start recognizing yourself as the author of the script, the tuner of the dial. Imagine this. For years, you've been replaying the same melody, the same heartbreak, the same burnout, and you thought the world was doing it to you. But in truth, you were the one pressing repeat, because you didn't know you had the power to change the song. Think about how radical that is. It means the cycle isn't punishment, it's feedback. The loop isn't evidence that you're powerless. It's evidence that you're powerful, that reality is faithfully reflecting exactly what you're broadcasting. And if reality is this faithful to your unconscious signals, then imagine what it might do when you begin to broadcast consciously. This is where rebellion takes root. Not in fighting the world, not in blaming society, not in cursing your luck. The rebellion is internal. It's the moment you refuse to keep sending out the same frequency. It's the moment you declare, "I will not be defined by old wounds. I will not be trapped by invisible patterns. I will choose a new signal." Philosophers like Viktor Frankl saw this even in the darkest circumstances. In a concentration camp, stripped of everything, he realized there was one freedom no one could take, the freedom to choose his inner state. And from that inner state, meaning was born. You have the same freedom. You've always had it. The difference is that no one told you your frequency was yours to command. Now let me ask you this. What if tonight, instead of blaming the partner who hurt you, you asked, "What signal did I bring into this connection?" What if instead of resenting the job that drains you, you asked, "What energy have I been broadcasting that keeps me here?" What if, for the first time in your life, you stopped pointing outward and turned the dial inward? This shift is not small. It's revolutionary. Because the moment you take responsibility for the frequency you're sending, the universe is no longer your enemy. It becomes your mirror, your amplifier, your stage. And yes, that can feel terrifying. Freedom always does. It means you can't hide behind excuses anymore. You can't keep saying it's fate or it's just bad luck. But it also means something far greater. You have the power to step out of the loop. You are not condemned to repeat. You are invited to rebel. So, let me ask you one final question before we move on. If reality is a mirror of your frequency, then what happens the moment you dare to tune into something new? So here we are. We've seen how psychology explains the loops. We've seen how quantum reveals the hidden frequency beneath them. And we've seen how rebellion means realizing you are not a victim. You are the transmitter. But knowing all this isn't enough. If you don't change the signal, the song stays the same. That's why this last step matters. It's time to move from theory to practice. And here's the truth. Shifting your frequency doesn't require a grand ritual, or a 30-day program, or a mountain retreat. It begins in the smallest of moments, the kind of moments you usually rush through without noticing. Tonight, when you're alone, I want you to try something simple. Sit quietly, no phone, no music, no distractions. Take a notebook and ask yourself one question. What loop repeated itself in my life today? Write it down without judgment. Maybe it was a familiar argument, a feeling of exhaustion, a sense of being unseen. Don't analyze it, just name it. Then, close your eyes and take 3 slow breaths. On each inhale, imagine tuning into a new station, one where this loop has already been broken. On each exhale, imagine releasing the old frequency, like static fading into silence. Now visualize just one alternative scene. If the loop today was loneliness, imagine what connection would look like if you were tuned to a different frequency. If it was burnout, imagine how your day would feel if you were tuned to energy and flow. Don't force it, just let the image form. This is not about convincing yourself with fake positivity. This is about experimenting with resonance. Because the truth is, your brain, your body, your consciousness, they don't know the difference between a memory and a vividly imagined future. Both create signals. Both tune the dial. And when you do this, naming the loop, breathing it out, visualizing a new station, you are no longer passively trapped. You are consciously sending a new broadcast. Try this tonight, and then, in the next 48 hours, pay attention. Notice the small shifts. Notice how reality responds when you change the signal you send. Because this is the ultimate truth. Reality is not fixed. It's fluid. It bends and echoes to the frequency you carry. And the loops you hate the most are not there to punish you. They're there to remind you that you hold the dial. The question is, will you dare to turn it?